The conference room on the 42nd floor gleamed with corporate perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, a mahogany table that cost more than most people's cars, and 200 shareholders in designer suits. I stood at the entrance, my hand trembling slightly on the door handle. "Excuse me, miss." A security guard materialized beside me. "The catering staff uses the service elevator." I straightened my spine, clutching my leather portfolio tighter. "I'm not catering staff. I'm here for the shareholders' meeting." His eyes swept over my simple black dress, designer but understated. Nothing like the flashy displays of wealth filling the room. "Name? Elena Rodriguez." He checked his tablet, frowning. "I don't see. She's not on the list because she doesn't belong here." The voice cut through the murmur of conversations like a blade. My stepsister, Isabella Winters, stood in the doorway, her red designer suit screaming money and power. "Security, please escort the maid's daughter out." 200 heads turned. The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning. My stepmother, Catherine Winters, rose from her seat at the head of the table, diamonds glittering at her throat. "Elena," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "How embarrassing for you. This is a meeting for actual shareholders of Winters Corporation. Not for household staff's children." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter spread through the room. I recognized many faces. People who'd eaten dinners at our house while my mother served them, who'd watched me grow up in the shadows of the Winters family, who'd never once acknowledged my existence beyond asking for more wine. "I have a right to be here," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My stepbrother, James, snorted from his position as CFO. "What right? Because your mother scrubbed our floors for 20 years? Because Dad felt sorry for you and let you eat at our table?" "No," I said quietly. "Because I own shares in this company." The laughter that erupted was cruel and dismissive. Isabella actually clutched her stomach, doubling over with mirth. "Oh, this is precious. Did you buy a single share with your waitressing tips? How adorable." "Security," Catherine snapped. "Remove her. Now." 2 guards started toward me, but a voice from the corner of the room stopped them. "Wait." Harrison Beck, senior partner at Beck, Cromwell and Associates, stood up. He'd been my father's lawyer, the only person in this room who'd ever looked at me with anything resembling respect. His silver hair caught the light as he walked toward the front of the room. "Ms. Rodriguez is correct. She does have the right to be here." Catherine's perfectly Botoxed face couldn't quite manage a frown, but her eyes narrowed. "Harrison, I don't know what game you're playing." "No game, Catherine." He opened his briefcase with deliberate slowness. "Just the law. Ms. Rodriguez is indeed a shareholder of Winters Corporation. 1 share doesn't give her the right to. Not 1 share." Harrison pulled out a thick folder. 51% of all shares. The silence that followed was absolute. Someone's coffee cup clattered to the floor, the sound explosive in the quiet. "That's impossible," James sputtered. "I'm the CFO. I would know." "No," Harrison said calmly. "You wouldn't. Because these shares were held in trust, transferred according to the last will and testament of Richard Winters." My stepfamily turned white in unison. Catherine gripped the edge of the table. "Richard left everything to his children. His real children. Actually," Harrison continued, pulling out documents, "he left the house and a generous trust fund to his wife and children by blood. But the company shares, the controlling interest in Winters Corporation, he left to Elena Rodriguez. She's not even his daughter." Isabella shrieked. "No," I said, stepping forward into the room. "I'm not." I walked down the aisle between the seated shareholders, their shocked faces blurring together. 20 years of being invisible, of being dismissed, of being humiliated. 20 years of watching them live in luxury while my mother worked herself to exhaustion. All leading to this moment. My mother, Maria Rodriguez, was your maid for 20 years. She cooked your meals, cleaned your homes, raised your children when you were too busy social climbing. She worked 18-hour days without complaint, sending me to public school while Isabella and James went to Swiss boarding schools. I reached the front of the room and turned to face the crowd. What none of you knew, what Richard made sure you never knew, was that she was also his closest confidant. His advisor. The woman who helped him build this company from nothing. "Lies," Catherine spat. "She was nothing but a servant. A servant with an MBA from Harvard," I interrupted. "Did you ever wonder why a woman that educated was cleaning your toilets? Did you ever ask? Or were you too busy treating her like furniture?" Harrison cleared his throat. Perhaps I should explain the full situation. 25 years ago, Richard Winters was on the verge of bankruptcy. A failed investment had destroyed his capital. He was going to lose everything. Catherine's face had gone gray. She knew this story, even if her children didn't. Maria Rodriguez, Harrison continued, invested her entire life savings, her inheritance from her father's estate in Mexico, into Richard's company. She became a silent partner, working as a maid to keep her involvement secret from competitors who would have exploited the information. That's ridiculous, James said weakly. Why would she? Because she believed in him. Because she was brilliant at market analysis. Because she loved him. The words hung in the air. I watched Catherine's face crumple as the truth she'd always suspected was confirmed. Not romantically, I clarified, though the damage was done. My mother loved Richard like a brother. They were friends from college. Did you know that, Catherine? Before my mother's family lost everything in a political upheaval? Before she came here with nothing but her education. I opened my portfolio and pulled out a photograph. My mother and Richard at their Harvard graduation, both young and smiling, arms thrown around each other's shoulders. She could have claimed her partnership publicly, could have demanded recognition. But Richard asked her to stay silent. Said it would be better for the company's image. Promised he'd make it right someday. None of this proves anything, Isabella said desperately. Even if she invested money. Everything is documented, Harrison interrupted. Every meeting, every strategy session, every pivotal decision that built Winters Corporation into what it is today. Maria Rodriguez was the architect of your father's success. And in his will, he finally acknowledged it. He pulled out the will, Richard's signature bold at the bottom. To Elena Rodriguez, daughter of my truest friend and partner Maria Rodriguez, I leave 51% of Winters Corporation shares, currently held in trust by Harrison Beck. It is my deepest regret that I allowed my cowardice and vanity to deny Maria the recognition she deserved. I cannot restore her lost years or dignity, but I can ensure her daughter receives what should have been her mother's all along. Where is your mother? Someone called from the crowd. Why isn't she here? I closed my eyes briefly. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. She spent her last days in a charity ward because her employer, I looked directly at Catherine, didn't provide health insurance for domestic staff. Richard was already gone by then. He never got to make it right. This will not stand, Catherine snarled. We'll contest. Try, Harrison said mildly. The will is ironclad. I made sure of that. Richard was very specific in his instructions. He knew you'd fight it. I pulled out another document from my portfolio. While you're processing this, you should also know that as majority shareholder, I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in the current CEO. I looked at Catherine. That would be you. You can't. I can. I have 51%. And I believe the company needs leadership that values all its employees, not just those born into privilege. You know nothing about running a company, James shouted. Stanford MBA, graduated summa cum laude, I responded. 5 years at Goldman Sachs. 3 years at McKinsey. Currently managing partner at Rodriguez Capital, which has averaged 30% returns for the last 2 years. Any other questions about my qualifications? The room exploded into chaos. Board members huddled in corners, whispering frantically. Catherine, Isabella, and James stood frozen, their world crumbling around them. One elderly board member, Thomas Chun, raised his hand. Ms. Rodriguez, what are your intentions? I smiled for the first time since entering the room. My intentions? To run this company the way my mother would have, with intelligence, integrity, and respect for every single person who contributes to its success, from the executives to the cleaning staff. I looked at my stepfamily. You're all welcome to stay, if you can work under those conditions. Catherine, you'll need to reapply for your position and compete with other candidates. James, I'll be conducting a full audit of the financial department. Isabella, what is it you do here again? I'm Senior Vice President of Marketing. Ah yes, the position created for you 6 months after you graduated with a C average. We'll be restructuring that department. You can't do this, Catherine whispered. This is our company. Our legacy. No, I said firmly. It was built on my mother's brilliance and sacrifice. You just lived in the house it paid for. And speaking of the house, I'm not evicting you. I'm not that cruel. But you should know that it, too, was left to me. You're welcome to stay as my tenants. I'll even give you the family discount on rent. Harrison began distributing copies of the share certificates to the board members. The reality was sinking in. The maid's daughter they'd dismissed, mocked, and humiliated for 20 years now owned their world. "There is one more thing," I said as security finally removed Catherine, who'd begun screaming threats. "Effective immediately, all Winters Corporation employees will receive comprehensive health benefits, including domestic staff. No one who works for this company will ever die in a charity ward again." A scatter of applause broke out among some of the younger board members. Thomas Chin stood up slowly. "Ms. Rodriguez, I believe I speak for several of us when I say we look forward to your leadership." The meeting continued for another 2 hours. I fielded questions, outlined my vision, and watched my stepfamily's allies abandon them one by one. By the time it ended, Catherine had been voted out as CEO, James had been placed on administrative leave pending the audit, and Isabella had resigned rather than reapply for her made-up position. As the room emptied, Harrison approached me. "Your mother would be proud." "Would she?" I asked, suddenly exhausted. She spent 20 years being humiliated by these people, never fighting back, never demanding what was hers. "She was protecting you," he said gently. "Richard wanted to tell the truth years ago, but Maria refused. Said Catherine would destroy you if she knew. Make your life hell. She wanted you to have a normal childhood, get your education, build your own success. Then, when you were ready, she let them treat her like nothing to protect me. And now you've restored her legacy. You've claimed what was always rightfully hers. That's all she ever wanted." I sank into the CEO's chair, my chair now. Through the windows, Manhattan stretched out below, glittering with possibility. On the wall, a portrait of Richard Winters stared down at me. I made a mental note to commission one of my mother to hang beside it. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. "You've destroyed our family." I typed back, "No, I've reclaimed mine." Then I deleted her number and got to work. There was a company to run, employees to protect, and a legacy to honor. My mother had spent 20 years in the shadows, building an empire she never claimed. Her daughter would spend the next 20 making sure everyone knew her name. Maria Rodriguez, the maid who built Winters Corporation, the woman who chose dignity over recognition, the mother who sacrificed everything so her daughter could one day walk into a boardroom full of people who dismissed her and claim what was always hers. The maid's daughter did belong here. She always had. It just took 20 years and a piece of paper to make them see it. But oh, what a sight their faces had been when they finally did. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.